This is WCRN Weekend with your host, Pat Rice.
Welcome to the show. And on today's show, we have a very special guest calling in. A dedicated young man who is concerned about the local communities in Massachusetts. He grew up in Mendon, Massachusetts, graduated from Nipmuc Regional High School class of 2008. He is also a Westfield State University alum who studied political science. He is also a union member, Eagle Scout. He has helped run fundraising offices for nonprofits and has volunteered on campaigns for state officials. He does it all. He is representing the Democratic Party, and he is campaigning for the state senator seat within the Worcester and Norfolk County District in the Commonwealth. He is Mr. Thomas Merolli. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, Mr. Merolli. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Once again, I want to thank you for coming on to the show. And for those that may not know, how and when did you get involved with politics?
Well, I've been involved for a while. Back in college, I actually worked for Richard Neal's congressional office, and I was a field consultant for Elizabeth Warren's Senate campaign. In the past several years, I've been very involved on the local level. I'm the Town of Mendon's Economic Development Chair, as well as my full-time job is actually the Assistant Treasurer for the Town of Mendon. So I've been involved for a while, but this running for office thing is very new to me.
Yeah, this is a very big move, and I've seen that you've been heavily involved with the local politics. You're going out there, you're showing your face, you're letting people know who you are. And you chose the Democratic Party, correct?
Yeah, I'm a Democrat.
So is there any reason why you chose the Democratic Party?
Well, look, I think that I'm a third-generation union member, definitely an advocate for working people and working people's issues. I think the middle class was built on the back of involvement from, or was built on the back of government assistance during the Great Depression and Progressive era. And I think that, there's a lot to be said about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, but sometimes we need to bring the bootstraps in. I think the Democratic Party is more in that mold.
Definitely. And what made you interested in running for the state senate of Worcester and Norfolk?
Well, I'm a lifelong resident of the district, lifelong resident of Mendon. And working in town government, I just felt like our town and our region is not being well represented on Beacon Hill. You can see in the roads which are falling apart, many communities not having access to clean drinking water, and really a lack of representation for so many issues.
Definitely.
And really, it's just as a public employee, I felt like it was my duty to really step up and advocate for all these local small towns.
Wonderful. One of the problems I can imagine within our local communities is the opiate epidemic that has taken over New England. How do you think it got so out of control?
Well, I think one of the problems is that we have a lack of long-term facilities available to people. I mean, there's plenty of studies that show really we need more long-term treatment. What's happening now is people get in for detox for a weekend and then are turned back out. And there are studies that show that most deaths from overdoses actually occur right after detox. What we need is to actually help people to get into more longer-term treatment. And there's really a lack of inpatient facilities in Central Mass. You have people who are waiting for a bed to open up in Boston to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that our communities have taken great strides to fighting it, and certainly have done what they can with the resources they have. But we really need to start viewing this as what it is, a disease.
How would you extend the treatment for those who are suffering opiate abuse?
Well, I think it's a matter, like I said, I think it's getting more facilities open, making grants available to facilities to provide more beds.
Mm.
And health insurance is also a huge piece of it because it really, a lot of them are not recognizing this for what it is. They're not providing the treatments that are needed. And it's about getting people's lives back on track because a lot of these people have had very fulfilling careers, and one wrong move, for instance, an accident can cause someone to be addicted to pain pills, which can lead down that road. It's about providing them the opportunity to get their life back on track.
Absolutely. And do you think we should have more like activities open to these people who are struggling through opiates, like something that they can use their time and be productive instead of doing drugs, along with the treatment centers? Do we need more like activities involved in our communities?
Absolutely. I think that's a huge thing. Making more after-school activities available, more community activities. And I think there's several communities in the region which have been pushing that and have been doing a great job with that. But there's always opportunity for improving it.
Which local communities would you say, in general, are hurting the most?
Are hurting the most?
Yes.
Well, I would say that all of our communities in the Senate District are hurting. I know that Milford recognized that there is particularly hard hit by this and has started an opioid task force, which is a great move. I know Southbridge also is another one on the other side of the district. And they've been very proactive as well. And I'd say every single community has been tackling this issue well, but it's just a matter of we need resources to be able to fight it.
How would we raise more money to get other resources involved?
I think there's several things going around at the state level being talked about. I think that a couple bills that I think would do a great deal to help this problem. I think that there's also a ballot question, the millionaire's tax, which could put more into education that would help with the school aspect of this. And like I said, I think there's several solutions to this. But the thing remains that this needs to happen. There are too many people. When you log into your Facebook feed, you don't know if you're going to see a friend or a friend of a friend or a family member dead from this terrible disease. I think it's affected everyone.
It's terrible. It's really horrible. We have to take a quick break right now, but once we get back, we will continue our discussions with Mr. Thomas Merolli, who is running for the Worcester-Norfolk District Senator seat. We'll be answering many of your questions and much more. You've been listening to WCRN Weekend with your host, Pat Rice, on AM 830.
Welcome to WCRN Weekend and your host, Pat Rice.
We are back, and in case you're tuning in now, we have been talking to Democrat Thomas Merolli, who is running for the Worcester-Norfolk District Senator seat. We discussed a little bit about his background along with the horrible opiate epidemic that's been terrorizing New England, and now we are going to discuss about the local school systems along with millennials. And leading into the school systems, how would you say the school systems are in the Worcester-Norfolk District? Like, what needs to be improved and where?
Well, I think there's a statewide issue that has been talked about a lot recently, and that's that of Chapter 70 funding. Mm-hmm. We've been using the same funding formula for our school system since 1993. It needs an update, and what happens is there's a lot of school systems that are left hanging by it because the state has a formula which essentially it calculates based on property values, stuff like that, that determines how every single school system should be funded in order to fully fund their students, and they kick in an amount of money based on that formula.
Okay.
But what's happening is it's just out of date, and local communities are kicking in more and more money to pay for their school systems, and that is in turn making property taxes raise, and the state just isn't doing its part. For one example, I know there's one school system where there's supposed to be money provided to help with special ed, and the state's supposed to provide 75% of it. It never does. So that school system actually, or the superintendent actually budgeted for less than the 75% the state's supposed to provide, and actually ended up being even less than what he budgeted for.
Wow.
And we have to actually create an accurate reflection of what schooling in Massachusetts looks like. And it's really about reflecting reality.
So where is most of this money that could be used for school transportation and special ed programs being used?
There is going to have to be more sources of revenue, and that's one possible solution to that is the millionaire's tax that's being talked about. That's going to be on the ballot, and that's specifically earmarked for education and infrastructure. And so right now, it's just it was a promise that has never been fulfilled. It was a law that it has never actually been fully funded.
How do you think we can keep recent college graduates out of debt, and why are millennials struggling to score full-time jobs and fulfilling careers?
Well, I think part of the problem is that the debt issue is a huge one because we have an entire generation of people that went to college to get degrees and can't find full-time work out of college, and are either working in gigs, and this is a gig economy. I'm sure you've heard that word thrown around often. But the fact is, Massachusetts has some of the highest job requirements out of any state in the country. So what we need to do is look for some form of debt relief for people. But what we also need to do is start pushing for the future generations, pushing for career-based education in schools. I know there's many schools in the Blackstone Valley that have been pushing to get people an associate's degree by the time they graduate college. So that's something I would definitely be in support of. And I think that would go a long way towards helping eliminate some of this debt and also preparing people to enter the workforce as well.
Exactly. And how would you say your school experience was? Because I know that you are a Westfield alum and you studied political science. Would you say that it prepared you to get into what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. But it was not a clean path there. I work, like I said, as an assistant treasurer right now. It took me a while to find what I would say a job using my degree. I used it in terms of this volunteer work. But I think colleges have to do a better job of helping connect their students with jobs. I think that there's been many steps taken towards this. I think this is the direction we need to go. We need to provide a roadmap for people from education to a career.
Definitely more support to lead people in that direction.
And people will talk about how Europe provides free tuition, but the reality is they also help provide those roadmaps as well. Talking about higher education, we need to talk about vocational and technical schools. And there's a couple in my Senate district. There's also an agricultural technical school that many people from my Senate district go to. We need to look into opening more of these schools, and we need to look into finding people that actually have these skills to go into a vocation.
Exactly.
I think the barrier to entry in these schools is high, and they do high-tech things, but we need to find a way to get more students into these programs.
Yeah, if you look around, you notice there aren't too many people that know a trade nowadays, us millennials.
Right.
There's not too many mechanics around anymore. A lot of them have been doing it for years, and they've opened up their own businesses. But I know a local mechanic, he says it's really hard to get some young new guys involved with it because none of them know how to fix cars or none of the skill sets.
Right, and I mean, that's the thing. My father went to vocational school as an electrician, and he ended up becoming an engineer. But that's the thing. Those skills he learned that were so important. And I think that opening up new avenues for people to get these skills would go a huge way towards helping with the situation we talked about with millennials and younger generations as well.
So this kind of leads into, what do you think our millennial generation has to offer, and how in a way can we change the world?
Well, something interesting about my race is it's a 33-year-old versus a 27-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because we're both millennials. We both have had student debt and dealt with a lot of the problems millennials have dealt with. But I think that the millennial generation is the generation that is so engaged into what's going on in this world right now and is hungering for a better tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that our generation is going to be the one to provide that better tomorrow as time goes on and as we become more and more involved. You know, I know that there's some people that might think we're quote-unquote snowflakes, but I think that I've seen people working 2 and 3 jobs. I see people struggling without health care. How many people do you know get hurt and just don't see a doctor because they can't afford the bill?
All the time.
All the time. And really, in the situation that I think that you can see a clear divide between generations, that this is something our generation has had to look at. And our generation really is dealing with the crippling issue of income inequality more so than any generation in a very long time.
We have to take a quick break. We've been talking with Democrat Thomas Merolli, who is running for the Worcester Norfolk District Senator seat. You've been listening to WCRN Weekend with Pat Rice on AM 830.
You're listening to WCRN Weekend. Once again, here's your host, Pat Rice.
We are back with Democrat Thomas Merolli, who is running for the Worcester Norfolk District Senator seat. On our last segment, we discussed about some of the local issues within our communities. We talked about the school system, millennials, and now we are going to continue our discussion with Mr. Merolli. And do you think that's like happening right now with the recent shooting down in Florida? You have all these high school students that are now creating these rallies and marches, and they're being heard. They're causing some controversy. You see it in the media, the news, and some of the older generations, they accept it, and then there's others that just they don't accept it. They think, oh, well, these kids don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I think that those children just went through a horrific attack and saw their friends murdered in the middle of the day. And the fact that they've turned around and turned that into advocating for a cause so forcefully is very admirable. And I really don't see how you can think of it any other way. You might disagree with what they're pushing, but I think it's very admirable that they decide to take their situation and in such a short time push for action. I think that Massachusetts laws that are on the books would have never allowed such a thing to happen. I think that's why we see a lack of shootings compared to a lot of other states, is because of the laws we have on the books.
Definitely. It seems like there's a lot more of these shootings happen down south than compared to up here. Right.
And I don't think that's not to say there's areas we can improve our gun laws for law-abiding gun owners. For instance, I think when you have a state like Connecticut and you get a license to carry there and go through the same exact process you would go through in Massachusetts, possibly even more strict, that I think that you should be able to carry that. It should be transferable. But I think overall our gun laws where they need to be. You can still own a gun here.
Mm-hmm.
You can still shoot a gun here for fun. Target shooting. I mean, I grew up around guns my whole life. My father was a cop, and I used to go shooting.
Yeah.
But I think overall our state does a good job at maintaining a balanced approach.
And do you think that the other states in our country should follow the same?
I mean, I'm not going to tell other states what to do. I mean, that's up to the people who elect representatives in their own states to deal with that. But I just would say, look to Massachusetts and what we've done here and what the results have been.
And how do you feel about the recent theft prevention bill? Not paying workers if they work overtime or paying more money.
Yes,
Wait.
The wage theft bill. Look, I think that it's disgusting if you don't pay your workers what they need to be paid, and what they deserve to be paid, the hours they work. And I know that a wage theft bill came up in the Senate, and Senator Fatman actually voted against it. And I honestly, I can't even fathom why. Yeah.
How do you feel about the work of the current Senate, Ryan Fatman?
Well, I would say that you look at his voting record, and it's the complete opposite of where it needs to be in many areas. He voted against a bill to protect workers from wage theft, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
He's voted against civil rights protections for LGBT people. He's voted against the right for workers to organize.
Wow.
And, there's many superintendents who have said that, and other public officials who have said that he's never even had a meeting with them. Republican or Democrat, you actually have to show up and talk to the people and the officials you're supposed to be representing. How are you supposed to know what's going on in the school systems that you're supposed to be advocating for if you don't meet with the superintendents who run them?
Exactly.
So as a public employee and someone who's very involved in local politics, that's where I think I come in. I know the work that these people do. I know what the people who have to deal with the decisions of the legislature have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. You're the voice for the people.
That's what I'm running as a senator for the people. Going around talking to these public officials, talking to people at their door. I know something that really impacted me the other day was in Southbridge.
Okay.
There was someone who said, I've lived here my whole life, and I've just watched it go more and more downhill. We don't have anybody up there in Beacon Hill who cares about us. I was tearing up because I just hear someone who feels that way, that they don't have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's just insane to me. And really, it goes against what our democracy is supposed to be about.
What our country is all about.
Yeah, that's what our country is all about. And I'd like to be there advocating for people. And that's really why I'm running.
So how has your campaign been going so far, your campaign run? And can you mention some of the fundraisers, caucuses, and community events that you've been involved with?
Well, I'm a public employee, so I'm not going to talk about fundraisers too much.
Okay.
But there was a great event in Milford at the very beginning of this campaign. It had over 140 people at it. It was a crafters brewery. I've been going around to caucuses, meeting Democrats all over the district. I've been going door to door, meeting with people at their doors. I've been going to fish fries. I've been going to spaghetti dinners with the Boy Scouts and fire departments.
That's awesome.
I've been out and about. I've been a busy person, Pat.
I believe
it's a good thing, and I love it. I love talking to people and hearing about their situations. And it's heartening to me to hear that there's so many people who are hungering for a change.
That is wonderful.
And there are some great events that my committee's putting on, and I ask you to go check out my Facebook page and my website, www.tom4ma.com. That's the number 4, and you can check them out.
That's terrific. I was going to ask you where and when can people vote, and how can people find you on social media and support?
Yeah, look up the Committee to Elect Tom Merolli
Okay.
on Facebook. I have a page. People can vote at their local polling location, and that's going to be November 6th.
Okay.
There's a primary before that, I believe on September 21st. I do not have a primary opponent, so it's really going to be about November 6th.
Awesome. We wish you the best of luck, Tom. I think you're going to be doing great things for the community. You're very passionate in what you want, and you know what you want. And it seems like you're listening to the people out there when you go into the communities. And I think you could bring some real change.
Well, thank you, Pat, so much for having me on your show. And I hope you have a great day.
Hey, thank you for joining us this afternoon, Mr. Tom Merolli. It was a pleasure talking to you today. And do you have any last words before we part?
Right. Look, I think the goal of politics is to help create a better world. And it's just disheartening that so many people have lost sight of that, lost sight of what the world can be. And that's really what I'm pushing. Is if you think that we can have a better future, if you think that we can live in a better society, and you're sick of just voting for what's not the worst option, then I ask you to get involved with my campaign. I'm looking for volunteers, people to help out, people from in the district and out of the district as well. And I tell everybody my personal cell phone number everywhere I go. It's 508-498-6533. I say that as proof that I'm not just trying to get elected and run away. And I hope to speak with you all soon.
Also, if you support and would like to donate to Mr. Merolli, all you have to do is go to secure.actblue.com/donate/Tom for MA. And that's with the number 4. Thank you for caring about our communities, and you're always welcome to come back onto the show, Tom. And we wish you